Hey, welcome everyone to a comparison of the Bose QuietComfort 45 headphones, or just QC45 for short, up against the Bose 700 noise cancelling headphones, just 700 for short. Now, if you want to see the written comparison of this video, you can find a link to my website in the video description. Furthermore, if you want to see individual video reviews of each headphones, which I dive into much further detail about each product, be sure to check out those video links also found in the video description. Now, both headphones are rather expensive. The QC45 is priced at $449 Canadian or $329 US, and the 700 is priced in more expensive at $479 Canadian or $379 US. While the QC45 is only slightly cheaper, when it goes on sale it can be $90 cheaper than its regular price, and that's a huge difference. And that tends to happen a few times a year. Moving over to the 700, it can have a similar price decrease while on sale, except they rarely go on sale compared to the QC45. Now, the great thing here about both headphones is that they both support a wired and wireless connection. The QC45 has a 3.5mm headphone jack, whereas the 700 has a 2.5mm headphone jack, but a 3.5mm adapter is included in the box. What's also great here is that even if the battery were to die on either headphone, as long as you plug it into a headphone jack on an audio source, you can still use them with a dead battery. And both, again, have a tie here because they both support multi-connect, which basically means you can connect to two devices at the exact same time. So in my instance, both devices, the testing is exactly the same. I connect it to a cell phone and to a computer. If my cell phone were to ring, what will happen is the content playing on my computer will automatically pause and I can quickly answer the call. Performance is identical on either headphone. Now, when it comes to how many devices you can keep in memory, both perform exactly the same in my testing once again. I was able to keep 5 devices in memory, which basically means I don't have to keep repairing them if I ever want to switch between devices. So you can only keep 2 active connections, but 5 in memory. I'm not sure what the total amount is for either headphones because Bose doesn't have it listed anywhere on their website or documentation, but being able to pair 5 devices to either headphones is quite a bit anyway for most people. Now, with both headphones, Bose advertises a range of approximately 33 feet for wireless connectivity. Now, the QC45 supports Bluetooth 5.1, and I was able to get about 55 feet walking through my house, and that's with the computer I was connected to on my main level of my house and me walking on the second floor of my house and still had a pretty decent connection. The 700 supports Bluetooth 5.0, and I was able to get about 45 feet range before it started to crackle out, and that's with one wall in between my device I'm connected to and the headphones blocking line of sight. For accessories, both come with a hard traverse case, an auxiliary cable, and as I mentioned earlier, the one with the 700 is a 2.5mm to 3.5mm cable, and a USB-A to USB-C charging cable. No charging adapters included with either headphone. You can also buy additional accessories on the Bose website for either headphones. Accessories basically include replacement charging cable, replacement auxiliary cable, and of course replacement ear cushions if they were to get damaged. So once again, things are pretty even when it comes to accessories. Now, switching over to the body, even though the 700 is quite unique looking, I still find it more attractive than the QC45, which has more visible edges, perhaps because the QC45 ear cups fold in slightly, whereas the 700 doesn't. Of course, appearance is personal preference, but the 700 is clearly the sleeker looking of the two. I'm glad the 700 doesn't fold in, as it usually means sacrificing a sturdier body. And to make things even better for the 700, the headband has steel within it to keep it quite firm and sturdy. Now, both devices are not water resistant or waterproof, except with the 700 there's a bit of a weird situation, but I explain that in detail in its individual review video. Be sure to check out why, because there's some confusing information on the internet as to what its water resistant level really is, but I recommend not getting either of them wet. What's strange is that the QC45 weighs 240 grams and the body feels a little weaker compared to the 700, and the 700 is only 10 grams heavier, but feels way more rock solid in the hand. The QC45 comes in 4 color options, so you can be pretty versatile to what your needs are, whereas the 700 only comes in 2 color options. It's rather limited. Okay, so both are over-the-ear headphone types, and they're very comfortable to use, and overall I find that I can wear either of them for about 4 hours straight. No issues, no sweaty ears, no pain to my head whatsoever. They feel great. Although, honestly, it's very hard to notice, but because I have both devices and I'm testing them, I find that the 700 is slightly more comfortable. Although the QC45 is still rather comfortable, there's this weird thing that I mentioned in this review video, is that when I was doing chores and vacuuming and stuff and moving stuff around, if you tend to bend over sometimes here and there, it'll move forward just like a few millimeters, maybe even 1 centimeter. That might not sound like a big deal, but honestly, for most people, including myself, that can be annoying because you have to kind of shift it back again. Whereas the 700 kind of just stays in place as it should. Now, I like to cover this bit of detail, especially for people that travel around airports often, because I've done this quite often myself, is when you place headphones around your neck, with a QC45, your chin will tend to rub into it. If you try to be clever and fold these in, the ear cups will rub into your neck. It's not comfortable. You're better off using hear-through mode, which I'll explain later, or just simply putting them on top of your head like this and walking around like that. Whereas with the 700, again, similar problem, not as bad, but my chin will tend to rub on the ear cuffs when I try to look left and right. But when I turn them in, they barely touch my neck. There's actually a slight gap. It's very comfortable to walk around an airport, train station, whatever, kind of like this. The interior of the headbands are made of different material, but both are equally soft. The ear cups on the QC45 seem to have just slightly less cushioning than the 700, but as I mentioned earlier, both are quite comfortable to wear for an extensive period of time. Both headphones can have the ear cups extend to almost the same amount, and as I mentioned earlier, it's safe to assume you could probably replace the ear cushions for either headphones because you can buy replacement units on the Bose website. The controls on the QC45 are all physical buttons, and not designed well. The primary controls are on the back of the right ear cup and where the issues are. The buttons are placed too close together, so often I'm pressing the volume down button when I meant to press the middle multifunction button. And the multifunction button on the QC45 is a problem just on its own because it can be used for 10 different commands. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. So a single tap will play pause audio or answer or hang up a call. Double tap will fast forward a track. Triple tap will go to previous track. And then there's about like 6 to 7 commands just for using it when phone calls are needed. It's just too much stuff to memorize. I wish they had designed the headphone controls a bit better on it. The 700, despite being older, has a much better design when it comes to controls. There are a few physical buttons, but the main control buttons are touch-based on the right ear cup. Double tap to play pause or answer or hang up a call. Swipe forward to go to the next track. Swipe back to go to the previous track. Swipe up for volume up. Swipe down for volume down. It's a lot easier to naturally get used to these controls. Now, both headphones, when connected to your smartphone, will support the native smart assistant like Google Assistant or Siri. Those are given for either one. Anything beyond that really depends on which headphones you're using. Although in my testing, I did with Google Assistant and they performed equally well on both devices. Basically, Google Assistant was really fast and responsive. I was able to hear me even in noisy environments. It did well as you would expect. Now, despite both headphones being rather expensive, they're missing auto play pause detection, which basically means that while you're wearing the headphones, when you take them off, any content playing on your computer or cell phone will automatically stop. When you put the headphones back on your head, it'll automatically resume. Unfortunately, it's bizarre that both headphones at this price range don't have that simple function. So when it comes to noise cancelling technology, this is where the QC45 has the advantage. When it comes to low humming sounds, like say maybe you're sitting in a cab and you can hear the motor or the wind outside as you're driving, or maybe even like sitting near your furnace, depending on how your house layout is, those kind of low humming sounds, the QC45 will make it like almost non-existent. Those sounds just almost don't exist. With the 700, it's not bad. It cancels out majority of it, but it comes through ever so slightly. When it comes to like normal sounds, like say maybe you're sitting in a room with someone watching TV or someone having a conversation maybe a few feet away from you, it's just barely noticeable with the QC45. It's there, but almost non-existent, very close. The 700, you can hear it. The sound is very muffled. It's still not going to disturb you in any way, but again, it's a little bit more noticeable. And of course, you expect the same thing when it comes to high-pitched sounds. It will come through with either headphones. I mean, that's a given. That's just the limitation of noise cancelling technology today. But the QC45 will do a better job of canceling out, say, someone playing rock music in the same room as you, those high-pitched sounds that might come through, whereas the 700 will have it come through ever so slightly more. One thing that's different when it comes to active noise cancelling, ANC for short, is that the 700 allows you to customize how much of noise cancelling you want active, whereas the QC45 doesn't. So for example, in the app, which we'll go over soon, you can adjust it to level 10. Level 10 is maximum ANC level, max noise cancelling. Level 5 will have some partial noise cancelling and allow some sounds to come through on purpose. Using the onboard microphones, it'll allow some sound to travel into your ears through the ear cups. Level 0 is no noise cancelling, and it will allow as much sound as possible to go into the microphones and into your ears so you can hear your surroundings. That's basically called aware mode. I found that aware mode is pretty good on both, but it performs better on the QC45. You see, with people standing within 5 to 10 feet with the QC45 in aware mode, it sounds like I'm having a natural conversation that I'm not wearing the headphones. It's incredible. With the 700, you can still have a conversation, but the person talking to you sounds ever so slightly muffled. I guess the best way to put it, what it sounds like with aware mode with the 700, because it's not as good as the QC45, is that it sounds like you're talking to someone on a Zoom or Teams call. You can make out what they're saying, it's just not as clear as, almost being in person. Okay, so when it comes to regular headphone mode, which basically means no ANC technology, no hear-through mode, aware mode rather, the QC45 can't do that. You must have aware mode on or noise cancelling on. That's it. The 700 does allow regular headphone mode, which the main benefit to it would be to prolong the battery, because other headphones that can do it, say from like Sony in one example, or from Jabra, the battery will last longer because it's using less technology. The 700 doesn't do that. For some bizarre reason, it's still the same battery average, which leads into the battery performance. And battery performance for both headphones are kind of a letdown. So the QC45 lasts about 23 and a half hours in my testing, which is close to what Bose documents and claims anyway, whereas the 700 lasts less at 20 hours. That's not that good, especially considering that competing headphones at the same price tag or even significantly cheaper, like I'm talking about even a third of the cost of either one, will last 30 hours minimum. And as I mentioned earlier, when you have regular headphone mode with some headphones from Sony or Jabra, the battery will last a lot longer. Doesn't do that with the 700. It still averages 20 hours. For some reason, I have no idea why. It makes no sense. And the bad news about the batteries just continue on, because both headphones take about 2 hours to recharge. It's quite a lot for what their battery performance averages. Competing headphones, which have longer lasting battery, will charge at less time, at usually 90 minutes. And the worst thing about charging these things, when you plug them into charge, you can't use them. They automatically shut off and you cannot power them on until you unplug it from being recharged. The only minor good thing about both headphones is that both of them do have a USB-C port for charging. Okay, so all audio you're hearing right now is through the QC45 microphone. Now, if you want to see what the QC45 and the 700 perform like in a noisy environment, to see how they handle microphone noise cancelling, be sure to check out their individual review videos. Again, links to those in their video description. Okay, and this time all audio is through the 700 microphone. Again, not a big improvement. Both microphones on both headphones are not that good. Heard much better on, say, the Jabra Elite 85H, but that gives you a rough idea of what they sound like. Okay, so Bose is well known for audio quality, right? And we already established that the QC45 is better for noise cancelling technology. What surprised me is that the 700 performs better for audio quality though. So when it comes to highs, you can adjust them in the app with the equalizer. I'll show you later. And some songs, especially rock songs, which I use for my benchmarking testing, the QC45 can get too sharp. Sometimes it kind of annoy my ears and I have to lower the treble in the app, in the equalizer. The 700 always sounds perfect. The bizarre thing is that if you increase the treble in the app, it makes almost no difference. But out of the box, at a bass profile, it sounds great. I don't have to really adjust or play with anything. So kind of surprising in a good way for the 700. When it comes to mids, they're kind of equal. Of course, if you find the right song, you can get some great vocal clarity. So they're kind of a tie there. When it comes to bass, it is difficult to tell, but I do have to give it to the 700. I find it can get a little bit deeper and you're not sacrificing quality. You're not getting a distorted sound of any kind. Bass is pretty darn good on the 700. A close contender from the QC45 with bass, but the 700 I find to be a little bit better. And of course, overall, when it comes to, increasing the bass on either headphones, they will perform pretty darn good when it comes to listening to action movies or video games with gunshots and explosions and stuff. Both headphones only support AAC and SBC codecs. They do not support aptX, which might be a bummer for some people, but honestly, the quality on both of them are still pretty darn good when it comes to audio performance. Okay, so we're gonna dive into the app, and I'm gonna show you what the controls look like for the QC45 first, because the functionality is more limited than the 700, and I'll show you what the difference is. But everything you see for the QC45 is pretty much identical for the 700. So you do have the ability to control the volume. You have modes, which is quiet mode, which is like ANC on, or aware mode, as I discussed earlier. You have the source you can connect to. As you can see, I have 5 devices in memory. You can only connect to 2 at the same time, but only have 1 active connection going on. You have the equalizer, which is not a full-blown equalizer, but honestly, it gets the job done. It's pretty adequate for most people. It'll do just fine for your needs. And then the settings, which is pretty basic stuff like renaming the device and pretty much repeated of what's on the main screen for the QC45. Now, diving into the 700, as I mentioned, the controls are almost the same, but they have more controls. So for example, you could turn on noise cancellation or off because you can go to regular headphone mode. If you go to favorites, This is basically where you can set preset favorites on the noise cancellation button of the headphones, because you can adjust the levels. And of course here you can adjust the level of the noise cancellation itself. Source is the same as the QC45, same with equalizer. And then shortcut, which is basically a touch command. If you press and hold the right ear cup, what will it do? This is where you can get to customize it. And the settings is also bare bones again. Nothing special, you can rename the device and pretty much basic stuff like that. Okay, so what I find really interesting in conclusion is that despite the QC45 being almost 2 years newer than the 700, you would think in almost every aspect the QC45 should be better. It's not the case. There's a bit of a tug and war going here. Which one should you get? This comes down to personal preference. I'll give you my opinion, but again, this is my personal opinion. What you decide really depends on what your priorities are for headphone functionality. I prefer the 700. They're a bit more expensive, but I find that despite them being older, they're rock solid. Now, if they go on sale, the QC45 is pretty darn tempting, especially when you have to save money. Performs great when they're on sale. As I mentioned, here in Canada, it can go almost $90 cheaper. That's a huge saving. So pick what you will, but that's pretty much a wrap for this video. So I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to check out my social links and website link in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.